He was the most pitiful soul in human society. With great effort, he lifted a bean to his lips, only for it to slip from his grasp and fall to the ground the very next moment. Yet he refused to accept his fate, simply because his hands were made of scissors. He could not eat like others. Seeing this, the kind-hearted Peg quickly handed Edward a pat of butter. Edward politely cut off a small piece and spread it on his bread. Through persistent effort, he tasted real food for the very first time. Yet Edward knew he was seen as a cold machine by humans. Since his creation, he had lived alone in a dark castle. The moment Peg saw Edward, her heart ached deeply, for he had no human palms, only cold, sharp scissor hands. The scars on his face were all accidental wounds from his own scissors. So, the kind-hearted Peg gently cleaned his wounds and resolved to bring him back to her town to live. When Edward rode in a car for the first time, his expression lit up with childlike excitement. Yet the townspeople seemed unwelcoming toward Edward. But Peg didn't care at all. After inviting Edward into her home, Peg eagerly introduced him to her family. When Edward saw Peg's beautiful daughter, his cold heart began to tremble for the first time. But when Edward looked at his reflection in the mirror with self-loathing, he knew he was unworthy of affection in this lifetime. Without nimble fingers, Edward struggled to put on the clothes Peg had given him. Seeing his flustered attempts, Peg rushed to assist. Fortunately, once dressed, Edward looked exceptionally handsome. Soon neighbors learned Peg had brought a strange man from the castle, and all wanted to see his face. To make Edward appear more normal, Peg had to bring out her cosmetics, and generously applied makeup all over Edward's face, to temporarily conceal his facial scars. But no matter how Peg tried to conceal them, she couldn't achieve the desired effect.
Darn this stuff!
Outside the house, Peg's husband was trimming leaves, preparing for a party for the neighbors, to introduce their new family member, Edward. Unexpectedly, Edward watched the man's movements, and began mimicking his trimming. Then, under the gaze of two boys, a charming dinosaur silhouette emerged before everyone's eyes. The man was overjoyed at the sight. Afterward, Edward trimmed shapes of Peg's entire family, beautifying the entire garden. The little boy wanted to quickly wash the dirt off Edward's shears, but the man immediately stopped him, explaining water would rust his tools. Instead, he sent his son to the garage for lubricant to care for the shears. And in that very moment, the man welcomed a new guest into his home. Gradually, word of Edward's skill spread throughout the town. People began choosing him to trim their lawns into beautiful patterns. Even the little dog, under Edward's touch, was transformed into a goddess-level dog, becoming the town's most fashionable pet. Soon, all the neighbors were rushing to have their dogs groomed by Edward. He became beloved by all. Edward's skills weren't limited to pets. He could also give women stunning long hairstyles, offering every trendy look imaginable. The women raved about his craftsmanship. Yet late at night, as Edward lay in bed, his heart felt hollow, until Peg's daughter Kim returned home for summer break. Edward's frozen heart began to beat once more, but she already had a boyfriend, and Kim despised him intensely. Even her boyfriend exploited Edward, coaxing him to crack open their home safe for money. Instead, they abandoned Edward inside the vault, leaving him facing imprisonment. And just as he was about to be locked away, Edward finally remembered his true identity.